Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I'm going to go down a slightly different angle, and I'm going to talk about fights on the Waltons. I have talked about how the cast, as close as we were and being like family, that it didn't mean that we didn't have fights at times and that someone might be annoyed with someone else, but that it was always very short-lived. And I don't recall there ever being an actual physical fight amongst any of the cast. However, amongst the Walton family and other people, other characters on the show, there were certainly a surprising number of fights, considering that I would say that the Waltons were a pretty peace-loving family, and that they weren't normally inclined to be looking for fights or trying to get involved with fights or provoking fights. But despite all that, there were a number of fights that happened for various members of the Walton family. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. If you enjoy these segments, please do hit like and subscribe. So this is by no means a complete list of all the fights. And as always, I expect to hear from all of you about anything that I have forgotten to include here. So in early seasons, one of the first things that I remember personally was Mary Ellen getting in a fight at school protecting Jim Bob. This was in the reunion when he was wearing a little blouse with a little collar that had lace on it, and somebody was picking on him, and Mary Ellen got in a fight at school. And then later on at dinner, we see she has a black eye. And so it gets explained when Jim Bob comes over and hugs her for protecting him. Also in season 1, the episode The Dust Bowl Cousins, when John Boy gets in a fight with Job, and Grandpa breaks up that fight. And that was John Boy protecting Mary Ellen. So you get the pattern here that the types of things that the Waltons would fight over was in regards to protecting a family member or somebody else that they felt needed help and protection. Another episode in season 1 where there was a fight, John Boy, in the episode The Actress, gets in a fight. We don't see the fight, but he gets in a fight with Alvira Drummond's chauffeur when he thinks that he has run off and left her there, and he goes to track him down and ends up getting in a fight and discovers that the chauffeur left because he was so far behind on his wages. But John Boy comes home with looking a little beat up there and what's going to be a black eye on his face. The other episode I remember from season 1 was in The Deed, when John Boy is staying at a boarding house and goes out to the movies and ends up these two thugs he ends up getting into a fight with. And later on, he kind of jumps them when he sees them once again, planning to victimize someone else. So John Boy protecting a young woman. Slightly different circumstances in season 2, The Bequest, when the boys are in their bedroom and they get to scuffling and shoving each other around and getting into a little bit of a fight there. And I think this was in regards to the fact that they're all expecting some money from Grandma, and it just causes a little bit of friction there. In season 3, the episode The Departure, when John goes to work away from home because they need money, and ultimately John Boy goes to find him, and John Boy and John end up getting in a bar fight, and they seem to be actually having a pretty good time as the bar fight proceeds. They had an opportunity to sort of grin at each other in the midst of getting punched or punching other people. In season 4, Jason defends Dodie at the dance in the breakdown when her sort of boyfriend, ex-boyfriend or whatever comes and is being just really rude and pushy with her, and Jason steps in to protect her. Continuing in season 4, there's the episode The Fighter. Now, in this case, it is Cleavon Little who is back as as a prize fighter and is intentionally training to have a prize fight to earn money to help his establish his church. So there is definitely fighting going on. But in this case, it's intentional. Once again, in season 4, in the episode The Emergence, when Marcia Woolery comes back and has a fiance, and John Boy discovers that he's really not treating Marcia well, but and then when he takes Marcia home to escort her home to her house, and the fiance shows up and accuses John Boy of making a move on his fiance, and basically they get into a little bit of a fight there. Skipping ahead a bit, in season 7, The Conscience, when Jason is going through the internal struggle about whether to be a conscientious objector, and Ben's having a hard time with Jason's decision and feels that Jason is maybe being a bit of a coward there. And Ben ends up getting into a fight in a bar with these men, and then they come outside and they are threatening to hit Jason. And so, Ben kind of getting into it with these guys because they are calling Jason, a coward. And although Ben may feel like Jason should be willing to serve and not be a conscientious objector, he's certainly not going to let other men say that his brother is a coward. In season 8, the episode The Medal, when Eddie, outside of Ike Godsey's store, gets into a bit of a fight with 2 other Navy guys, I believe they are, and basically breaks or dislocates one of the guy's arm, shoulder, something like that. So a little bit of a scuffle there, and then later on, other guys are picking on him, and he debates whether he's going to get in a fight, and Mary Ellen helps him make the decision not to. There were various different episodes where things didn't escalate maybe into a physical fight, but they were certainly intense confrontations and often resulted in guns being pulled. In the episode The Search, when in season 4, when Jim Bob and Elizabeth and Olivia are lost in the woods and they run across the old lady bootlegger, and she definitely threatens them, and they definitely feel like there's some real potential danger there. John pulls a shotgun on Gino when he catches him stealing in the kitchen in The Boy from the CCC. So we get to see the dangerous side of John Walton when seriously provoked and when he feels the need to protect his family. In the episode The Conflict, when they are going to be demolishing Martha Corinne's cabin to put the highway through, and John Boy and Grandpa end up staying there to help Martha Corinne. And when there is a standoff, and Grandpa and John Boy, and they're all kind of on the line, and guns are pulled, and John Boy tries to stop the shooting from starting, and John Boy ends up getting shot. So seriously, guns pulled and guns shot in that episode. In the season 8 episode, The Violated, when Darcy's husband finds out that she was violated by Son Slater, and her husband is all set to go and pull out a gun and, go fight Son Slater. And John is able to convince him that won't help Darcy, and that Darcy needs him and needs him alive. So John diffuses that confrontation. Guns were pulled multiple times in the episode The Home Front, when John is part of the draft board and is responsible for convincing Tommy Satterfield to go back after he's gone AWOL. And then Tommy's killed, and his father is now out for revenge and is threatening the various different Walton boys. So he shoots at Jim Bob at one point, and then he and John face off with shotguns much later in the episode when Olivia is able to come and defuse that situation when they have received the telegram that John Boy is now missing in action. Also in the season 9 episode, The Hostage, Elizabeth gets kidnapped by a gun-wielding, dangerous man. In The Moonshiner, in season 7, Boone Walton is running around with a shotgun and shooting at signs and threatening people. So definitely shotguns happening there. And in The Victims in season 9, when there is a battered wife and the Waltons help rescue this battered wife from her violent husband who's come back from the war and is having flashbacks. So they stepped in to help protect her from a dangerous situation. So as I said, this is just a handful of the various types of conflicts that really escalated on the Waltons, and in some cases resulting in guns being pulled and on occasion guns being fired. So I didn't even talk about all of what went on during the war, because war is its own sort of entity. But considering what a peaceful people the Waltons were and what a peace-loving show it was, we definitely had our share of fights, from low-key, the boys tussling, to out and out John Boy getting shot. So, but we all survived it. And sometimes those scenes were a lot of fun to film as well. And I just loved the way they were all prompted by a need to protect and to help. And the Waltons were never the instigator on these fights. It was provoked by someone they cared about or felt needed to be supported and protected and helped. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more of your questions in an Ask Judy. And I have a few more special guests, I hope, in the pipeline. So be hoping to share that with you soon, too. Thanks for watching.